So as we turn now to Yizkor, some of us are grieving recent losses. Some are remembering long deceased loved ones or both. And some of us may at this moment be fearing the imminent loss of a loved one, perhaps watching someone we love suffer. Some losses are relatively uncomplicated with the blessing of a peaceful passing, the opportunity to say goodbye, a sense of resolution in our relationship with them. But many deaths aren't like that. We don't always get the opportunity to work through our relationships with loved ones before we lose them. We don't always get to say goodbye. Death is never, quote, fair, but sometimes it feels particularly unjust. Yizkor is a ritual that offers an experience of what Dahlia Marx quoted as sacred poverty in that piece on ritual and liminality. It takes away none of the feelings of being bereft, but it does offer the opportunity to experience them in the company of others as a shared aspect of human experience and as a window into something holy. In this respect, every Yizkor during the year is the same. And each one is also unique. Grief sits differently with us at different times of the year. Different memories come to the fore, and the air is different, right? Pesach in the spring, and then Shavuot is early summer, and Shmini Atzeret as the leaves are falling and the whole holiday season is coming to an end, and Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, Yizkor, it partakes especially of three valences. One is what we've been talking about, the question of forgiveness and atonement in connection with those we remember. Apologies that we wish we'd made and didn't. Wounds that weren't resolved during life, and also forgiveness we didn't get to offer. Perhaps no apology was made. Perhaps we just weren't ready to forgive. The second valence is the confrontation with our own mortality, which is front and center on these days. We grieve our loved ones in the midst of facing that we ourselves are not exempt. Yom Kippur is a pre-enactment of our own deaths, right? We're souls without bodily needs. And that, of course, leads to the third piece, which is the question of how we're living now. Our vitality, depth, and courage, right? That really gets at the essence of what Yom Kippur is. I've long felt that the pre-enactment of death is really about life. It's Nachman's Lo lahitfached klal. Confront your fear of dying. Get it out of the way, so to speak, so that you can begin to confront your fear of truly living. I referred several times on Rosh Hashanah to the Baal Shem Tov's version of that very narrow bridge. He taught that after death, the soul has to cross a very narrow bridge. And I kind of casually threw in on Friday night that when Rav Nachman shifted the idea of the narrow bridge from after death to all of life, he created a kind of continuity between life and death, between the transitions we experience throughout life and the eventual transition we will all make to whatever there is after we die. Death is just one more bridge we cross. To be honest, I'm not sure I'm prepared to say that anything makes confronting our own mortality easier. It is, as Emily Dickinson said, impossible to conceive. Nor would I ever offer platitudes in confronting grief and loss. One of the best books ever written about grief is C.S. Lewis's A Grief Observed. He wrote it about the loss of his beloved wife. And he wrote, "Talk to me about the truth of religion and I'll listen gladly. Talk to me about the duty of religion and I'll listen submissively. But don't come talking to me about the consolations of religion, or I shall suspect that you don't understand. I do think, though, that there's something in the acculturation and acceptance of constant change, perpetual liminality, at the heart of Rav Nachman's teaching that life is that very, very narrow bridge. It's sort of a riff on Shakespeare, right? Who put in the words of Julius Caesar, cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. Nachman is saying something more like, it's the valiant who die many times before their deaths. And metaphoric death doesn't take the sting out of literal death. It remains a shock to the system, whether we're contemplating our loved ones or our own, but does offer us something. Perhaps knowing that we're living with real courage builds the muscle. Certainly it enables us to live richer, deeper lives. And there's also something in the Baal Shem Tov's original teaching about crossing that bridge after death that I think is important to share now. I caricatured him a little bit, right, when I quoted him saying it's really scary and we want to go really fast. But there's some truth in what he was saying, right? Whatever we believe about what comes after, I think we all hope for a smooth transition that's minimally frightening. And what he was actually talking about was a quality in life called zerizut. It was a piece about passion and alacrity. And when you go to do a mitzvah, he said, do it directly. Like once you decide that you're going to do it, you think about doing it, do it. Don't get distracted. Don't procrastinate. Don't stop and chat with people. Do it. Right? And he says, if you act with zerizut in life, you'll be able to cross the narrow bridge after death without interruption. Well, not so much my theology that way, but I do understand and value him teaching us to live life with our goals front and center. It's about living with kavanah and not not allow ourselves to get pulled away from the things that give life meaning that we really care about by all the mishigas and distractions in the culture around us. It is a kind of carpe diem, but not in the pursuit of pleasure. It's about mitzvot. It's about our work in the world. It's the good that's given to us to do. And certainly one of the biggest regrets that we live with as we age and our own mortality is a little closer is having failed to keep our priorities straight. To keep the ikar, the essence, and the tafel, the secondary, the secondary. Keep what's important front and center. I'll share that personally this year, one of the things I'm struggling with is realizing how much time I've wasted in my life being anxious and worried about things that never came to pass. What a waste. And how distracted that sometimes kept me from pursuing what I cared about, my goals. And our confrontation with death on Yom Kippur, and especially at Yizkor, comes as a stark reminder to me to get myself together in that regard, right? Not to stop for chit-chat with the voices in my head when I feel like I have important work to do. And it's not because I'll get more done. Maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. No one completes the work. No one fulfills the mission. But because my life will be more meaningful and fulfilling along the way if I do that. And that takes us to Har HaAvarim, the mountain of transitions that I mentioned a few times on Rosh Hashanah. We just read it this past Shabbat. Near the end of the Torah, Mount Moses is told to ascend. It's the second time he's told to go up that mountain. The first time follows the death of both his siblings. It's a moment of grief for him. And in case he's in denial, God makes the connection for him. Ascend the mountain of transitions, view the land that I've given you, and when you've seen it, you too shall be gathered to your kin, just as your brother Aaron was. But Har HaAvarim represents more than Moses' own personal transitions, the loss of his brother and sister, a whole generation in that grief. his anticipation of his own mortality, it also represents a communal transition from the leadership of Moses to that of Joshua, from life in the wilderness, the midbar, to life in the land. There's loss here and a bridge. Har HaAvarim connects one generation to the next, the Torah to the future. It marks the end of an era, the beginning of a new one, a paradigm shift in the ways we relate to God and each other. And it's a reminder that our lives and the lives of our loved ones are chapters, pages, in a story far longer than our own lifetimes. V'chotvenu b'sefer hachayim. Over and over we pray that on these days. Write us in the book of life. I've come to believe years ago that the book of life here isn't the Santa Claus list of the naughty and the nice, right? Who's going to get to live and die. It refers to the Torah. And we pray for lives that are worthy of becoming Torah, of someone else learning from us. I was thinking about this in connection with my teaching last night, the unbridgeable gap of knowing and understanding each other. It's true of everyone always. But I think that one of the things we grieve when we lose a loved one is the reality of all that we will never know about them and all that they will never know about us. A sense of the future learning now being foreclosed, especially when loss is premature or sudden and unexpected. The feeling is real and undeniable, but I actually don't think it's true that the opportunity for learning is gone. I believe the soul continues to grow and learn after death, and that the people who we've loved and lost continue to know us and love us and share what we go through and quell in our achievements. That the relationship remains dynamic. Those we remember in some mysterious way know who we are now. What we miss is the concrete awareness of their knowledge. And certainly we can continue to learn about them and from them. One of the blessings of Shiva, well done, is that people tell stories. And the mourner learns things. I never knew that about my mother. I never knew that about my father, right? I learn. And also the lessons that a human being teaches unfold over time. Like all good Torah, we understand more and differently as we grow and learn. V'chotvenu b'sefer hachayim. I think that may be the highest thing a human can aspire to. Write us in the book of life, lemancha, Elohim chayim, for your sake, living God. It's not just do the writing for your sake. I like to read it as, write us into the book of life for your sake. May we be blessed with lives lived for something beyond ourselves.